Jack had seen many strange things in his years as a space explorer. He had wandered through galaxies filled with unknown creatures, explored alien ruins, and survived countless close calls. But nothing could have prepared him for the mysterious woman who walked into his hideout on the remote planet of Xandora. It was late evening. The lights of the small outpost flickered, casting long shadows on the cold stone walls. Jack sat at a worn table, the map of his next mission spread out before him. His fingers traced the outline of an old alien structure hidden deep within a massive asteroid. It was said to contain ancient technology, something worth a fortune or perhaps a weapon of unimaginable power. Jack wasn't sure, but his orders were clear: retrieve the artifact and get out. The air was thick with the sound of distant thunder, the storm outside raging against the walls. As Jack leaned back in his chair, pondering his next move, the door to the small hideout opened. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the storm's flashes. Jack didn't move at first. He had dealt with all sorts of unsavory characters in his time, but this one was different. She was tall, with long dark hair that flowed like a river of shadows. Her clothes, simple but practical, clung to her figure as if made for comfort and ease of movement. She stepped into the dim light, her eyes glowing with a strange intensity. Her presence was commanding, yet there was something playful in the way she moved. "Are you Jack?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Jack's eyes narrowed, and he stood up slowly, keeping his hand near the weapon strapped to his side. "Who wants to know?" "I do," she said, stepping closer. "Name's Lyra. I've been tracking you for some time." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He had been careful. Too careful, he thought. He hadn't let anyone follow him. Not after the betrayal. Not after everything. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice steady but guarded. Lyra smiled, a quick flash of teeth. "I'm here to help," she said. "I know you're after the artifact in the ruins. I'm just the one you need to make sure you don't end up dead or worse." Jack didn't trust her. He couldn't. But something in her eyes told him she wasn't lying. There was a fire in her, a confidence that he had seen before in people who knew exactly what they were doing. "I work alone," Jack said, his voice low. "Always have." "I'm sure you do," Lyra replied, her tone light. "But trust me, you're going to need me if you want to survive this mission. You're not the only one after the artifact, Jack." Jack's eyes darkened. He had known. There were risks, but he hadn't realized just how dangerous things could get. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he warned, his voice a little harsher than he intended. Lyra raised an eyebrow. "I know exactly who you are. A man with a past he'd rather forget. A man who has made enemies in more places than he can count." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "But I'm not here to dig into your history. I'm here because we both want the same thing." Jack studied her for a long moment, his mind working through the possibilities. He wasn't sure. He wanted company, especially not from someone who could see right through him. But there was something about Lyra that made him feel like he didn't have a choice. "Why should I trust you?" he asked. Lyra's smile softened, and she shrugged nonchalantly. "Because if you don't, you'll be dead before you get to the artifact. Trust me. I know these ruins better than anyone. I can read the ancient scripts, avoid the traps, and navigate the maze of corridors that most people can't even begin to comprehend." She stepped closer. "You need me." Jack took a deep breath, his mind racing. Every instinct screamed at him to send her away, but something held him back. Maybe it was the fact that she was right. He did need help. And maybe, just maybe, she was exactly what he needed to get the job done. "Fine," Jack said, his tone giving nothing away. "You can help, but if you try anything at all, I won't hesitate." Lyra chuckled. "Fair enough," she said. "But don't worry. I'm not here to make trouble. I'm here to get us both out of this alive." The storm outside raged louder, the wind howling as the lights flickered again. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something big was coming, something that would change everything. Lyra stepped back, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "We leave at dawn," she said, her tone suddenly more serious. "I'll meet you at the west gate. Jack nodded, still unsure if he had made the right choice. But one thing was clear. This mission was about to get a whole lot more complicated. As Lyra turned to leave, Jack couldn't help but watch her. There was something intriguing about her, a mystery he couldn't quite figure out. He didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be more dangerous than he could ever imagine. He sat back down, running a hand through his hair. The artifact, the ruins, the danger, it all seemed like another job. But Lyra's presence made it feel different, more personal. He glanced at the map again, his eyes lingering on the coordinates that marked the hidden entrance to the ruins. The mission was already in motion, and with Lyra by his side, it was about to take a turn he never saw coming. The first light of dawn broke through the storm clouds, casting a pale gray hue across the landscape. Jack had never been a fan of early mornings, but today was different. He felt the weight of what lay ahead pressing on him, and the promise of what was at stake filled his mind. He stood by the west gate of the outpost, the cool air biting at his skin as he scanned the horizon. Lyra was already there, her silhouette sharp against the dim light of morning. She moved with the kind of grace that only someone with her level of confidence could pull off. She was ready. Jack wasn't sure he was. She turned and gave him a quick, almost playful smile. "You're late," she teased. "I was getting ready," Jack replied, though it was clear he had been standing there for a while, lost in thought. Lyra tilted her head, studying him. "I figured you'd be cautious, but I didn't think you'd be nervous." Jack gritted his teeth, trying not to show how much her words affected him. "I'm not nervous." "Uh-huh," she said, clearly unconvinced. "Well, we better get moving. We don't have time to waste." She walked ahead and Jack followed her. He could hear the steady click of her boots on the stone path, a rhythm that seemed to match his heartbeat. As they made their way through the rocky terrain, Jack tried to focus on the task ahead. They were heading toward the ruins, a place that had been lost to time, its secrets hidden beneath layers of alien history. According to the records, only a few had ever returned from the ruins, and none of them had been the same. "Have you been there before?" Jack asked, his voice low as he caught up with her. Lyra didn't turn around, but he could hear the smile in her voice. "A few times. The first time was interesting. I barely made it out." Jack raised an eyebrow. "What happened?" "I wasn't prepared," she said simply. "I learned from that." Jack could hear the unspoken meaning in her words. She had been to the ruins before, but each time had been a lesson in survival. And now she was guiding him. It felt strange. Jack, a man who had worked alone for so long, now relying on someone else. He wasn't sure how he felt about it yet. They traveled for hours, the sun slowly climbing higher in the sky. The terrain grew more difficult as they approached the base of the asteroid, where the entrance to the ruins lay hidden. The wind had died down, but the air was still thick with tension. Finally, they reached the entrance. It was nothing like Jack had expected. The massive stone archway was carved into the side of the asteroid, its surface smooth and untouched by time. Strange symbols were etched into the stone, glowing faintly in the light. Jack's pulse quickened as he studied them. These were the markings of an ancient civilization, long forgotten by the galaxy. "I take it you can read these?" Jack asked, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Lyra nodded. "I can. These are the instructions for navigating the traps inside. They're not just random designs. Every line, every curve has a meaning. They guide you if you know how to read them." Jack stepped closer, feeling the weight of the artifact's potential power in his chest. "And what about the traps?" Lyra's eyes glinted as she stepped forward, examining the symbols. "I know how to avoid them. But you have to follow my lead, Jack. If you don't, we're both dead." Jack wasn't sure if it was her words or the situation that made his heart race. He nodded, his voice steady. "I'll follow." With a final glance at the symbols, Lyra stepped through the archway. Jack followed closely behind, his eyes darting around as they descended deeper into the ruins. The air grew colder, and the walls seemed to close in on them, making the passage feel smaller and more confined with every step. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with the weight of history. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, some depicting alien creatures Jack had never seen before. Others showed scenes of battles, wars fought across the stars, and civilizations that had risen and fallen long before humans had even learned to walk the stars. "This place is older than anything I've ever seen," Jack said. his voice reverberating in the silence. Lyra glanced at him, her face serious now. The ruins are more than just ancient, they're dangerous. The technology here, the artifact we're looking for, is beyond anything we could imagine, and there are others who want it just as badly as we do. Jack's eyes flicked to her, his gaze sharp. Who? Lyra hesitated, then spoke in a lower voice. There's a group, mercenaries, bounty hunters, who have been hunting this artifact for years. They'll do whatever it takes to get it, and they're not the only ones. Jack frowned. Then we need to be quick. Exactly, Lyra said. But quick doesn't mean careless. We still need to move carefully, Jack. These ruins are full of traps, some designed to keep people out, others designed to keep people from leaving. As they moved deeper into the ruins, Jack could feel the weight of Lyra's words settling on him. This wasn't just about retrieving an artifact anymore. It was about surviving, about facing an enemy that was determined to stop them no matter what. They came to a large chamber, its walls covered in dust and cobwebs. In the center stood a pedestal, bathed in soft light from above. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he stepped forward, knowing that the artifact was close. Lyra moved ahead, stepping carefully, her eyes scanning every inch of the room. She paused for a moment, then motioned for Jack to stay back. There's a trap, she whispered, a pressure plate hidden beneath the dust. Step lightly, Jack. One wrong move and the whole room could collapse. Jack nodded, his senses sharp. He carefully placed one foot in front of the other, trying not to disturb the ground. It was slow going, but they were making progress. As they reached the pedestal, Lyra's fingers brushed against the surface, triggering a soft hum. The air around them seemed to shift as the pedestal began to rise, revealing the artifact beneath. It was beautiful, unlike anything Jack had ever seen. It glowed softly, its shape both intricate and simple. It pulsed with an energy that seemed to draw Jack in, filling him with a strange sense of purpose. This is it, Lyra said quietly, her voice filled with reverence. The artifact. Jack stepped forward, his hand reaching out to touch it. But as he did, a voice echoed through the chamber, sending a chill down his spine. You're not the only ones here. The voice echoed through the chamber, sending a shiver down Jack's spine. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up as he and Lyra froze in place, staring at the glowing pedestal where the artifact lay. You're not the only ones here, the voice repeated, more clearly now, a cold, menacing tone in it. Lyra's eyes darted around the room, scanning every corner for movement. We've been followed, she muttered under her breath. Jack could feel her body tense beside him. Her usual playful demeanor was gone, replaced by the sharp focus of someone who knew how to survive under pressure. By who? Jack asked, his voice steady despite the growing unease. The air around them seemed to hum with tension, the quiet darkness of the chamber making the space feel even more claustrophobic. Mercenaries, Lyra said, her voice low but urgent. I knew they were close, but I didn't think they would be this close. Before Jack could ask anything further, a low thud echoed from the far end of the room, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps. Shadows shifted as the figure of a large man appeared, stepping into the dim light. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in black combat armor. He moved with the confidence of someone who had been in 100 firefights, his eyes scanning the room for potential threats. You're in our way, the man said, his voice gruff. We've been tracking you two for a while. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. The mercenaries weren't the only ones after the artifact. Whoever this man was, he wasn't going to let them walk away with it. He reached for his blaster, his fingers brushing the cool metal of the weapon at his side, but Lyra's hand shot out to stop him. Don't, she whispered, her eyes never leaving the mercenary. Let me handle this. Jack hesitated, his instincts telling him to take the man down before he could do any damage. But something in Lyra's eyes made him pause. He trusted her. She had led them this far, and he needed to trust that she knew what she was doing. Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. We don't want trouble, she said. We're just here to retrieve the artifact. Leave us be, the mercenary chuckled darkly, the sound echoing through the chamber. It's too late for that. You think we're just going to let you walk out with the artifact? No, you're not the only ones with a claim on it. Jack's jaw clenched, frustration building in his chest. This was not how he had imagined things going. He had thought the ruins would be their biggest problem, not armed mercenaries with unknown motives. What do you want? Lyra asked, her voice unwavering despite the threat in the air. The mercenary grinned, but it wasn't a friendly smile. The artifact. You can either hand it over peacefully or we'll take it by force. Jack's grip on his blaster tightened. He had been trained for moments like this, situations where survival was the only thing that mattered. But he knew that violence wouldn't help them here. They needed to find a way out, not start a war in the heart of these ancient ruins. Lyra's eyes flicked to Jack for a brief moment, then back to the mercenary. Her expression remained calm, but Jack could see the gears turning in her mind. She was calculating, analyzing, and planning. "All right," Lyra said, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "We'll make a deal. You leave us alone and we'll let you go. No need for violence." The mercenary raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued by her sudden change in attitude. "And why would I believe you?" Lyra smiled. "Because you don't have a choice. You can either die trying to take the artifact or you can walk out of here alive." For a split second there was silence. Jack could see the hesitation in the mercenary's eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. But then something changed. The mercenary's grin widened and Jack felt a sickening realization creep over him. "Your little friend here," the mercenary said, his voice dripping with amusement, "has been keeping secrets." Lyra froze. Her posture stiffened and Jack felt a cold shiver run through him. He turned to her, confusion and suspicion mixing in his mind. "What do you mean?" Jack demanded. The mercenary stepped closer, his face now mere inches from Lyra's. "I know exactly who you are. You think I didn't recognize you?" He glanced at Jack, his eyes filled with disdain. "You're nothing but a pawn in her game." Lyra's face went pale, and for the first time since they'd met, she seemed truly vulnerable. Her usual confidence faltered, but only for a moment. She turned away from the mercenary, her jaw tightening. "What is he talking about?" Jack asked, his voice hardening. The betrayal was clear, even if he didn't understand the full story yet. Lyra's eyes met Jack's, and for the first time he saw something in them he hadn't noticed before. Fear. "Jack," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "I never meant for you to get involved in this." "Get involved in what?" Jack's heart raced. His mind was racing, pieces of a puzzle he hadn't yet understood beginning to fall into place. "Lyra, what aren't you telling me?" She didn't answer at first. Instead, she turned back to the mercenary. "I wasn't going to tell him. But now you forced my hand?" The mercenary laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "You think this is the time to explain your secrets? Your little friend has been playing you, Jack. She's been hunting this artifact for years. It's not just some treasure. It's a weapon, one that can control entire galaxies. And she knows it. She's been using you to get to it." Jack took a step back, his mind spinning. The woman he had trusted, the woman who had walked beside him through danger, had been using him all along. He felt a rush of anger rise within him, but beneath that was a sharp sting of betrayal. She had lied to him, kept the truth hidden. "Lyra," Jack's voice cracked with the weight of the accusation. "You've been using me?" Her eyes filled with regret. "I didn't want this to happen. I never wanted you to know the truth." Jack shook his head, stepping back from her. "You've been tracking me. Everything we've done, every step we've taken, it was all part of your plan?" Lyra didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a step forward, her voice softer now. "I'm not the enemy here, Jack. I've been trying to stop the true threat. The mercenaries want the artifact to control the galaxy. I need it to destroy it, to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. But I can't do it alone. I need your help." Jack's mind raced. The confusion, the anger, and the hurt all mixed together, making it hard for him to think clearly. Everything had been a lie. But even as the anger grew, a part of him knew Lyra wasn't the true enemy. She had kept secrets, but her motives had always been for something greater than herself. "Then why didn't you tell me the truth?" Jack asked, his voice quieter now. "I was afraid you'd leave me," Lyra admitted. "Afraid you'd never trust me again." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and full of unspoken emotion. Jack looked at her, the woman who had led him through danger, the woman he had begun to trust. "I don't know what to believe anymore," Jack said, his voice cold but broken. "But I'll deal with you later. Right now we have bigger problems." The mercenary smirked. "That's right. And I'm going to make sure you don't leave this place alive." Jack turned to face the mercenary, his hand reaching for his blaster once more. This was far from over. The mercenary's laughter echoed through the chamber, bouncing off the ancient stone walls. His words hung in the air like a threat, heavy and unyielding. Jack's mind was still racing, trying to process everything that had just been revealed. Lyra, the woman he had trusted, had been hiding her true intentions from him the entire time, but there was no more time to dwell on the betrayal. They were in danger and they had to act quickly. Jack's fingers gripped his blaster tightly, the weight of it grounding him in the present. He wasn't going to let this mercenary or anyone stand in his way. The mercenary took a step forward, his posture confident and threatening. You can try to fight, but it won't change anything. You're outmatched, outnumbered, and trapped in a ruin that's already starting to close in on you. Jack's eyes flicked toward Lyra, who stood beside him, her expression unreadable. The brief moment of hesitation that had flashed in her eyes earlier was gone now. She had made her choice, and it was clear from her posture that she was prepared to face whatever came next, whether it was the mercenary or the consequences of her own decisions. We're not leaving without the artifact, Lyra said, her voice steady and filled with resolve, and we're not giving it to you. Jack could feel the tension rising, the air growing heavier with each passing second. They were surrounded, but they had the element of surprise, at least for now. The mercenaries might have the numbers, but Jack and Lyra had something else. Determination. Lyra took a slow step toward the mercenary, her eyes locked on his. You're not walking out of here with that artifact, she repeated, her tone leaving no room for argument. We're the ones who found it, and we're the ones who will decide its fate. The mercenary's grin widened, but there was something colder about it now. You really think you can stop me? You're both fools. You'll die in these ruins just like everyone else who tried to take what doesn't belong to them. Lyra moved faster than Jack expected, her hand reaching for a hidden blade strapped to her side. She threw herself into the mercenary, aiming for his throat with the precision of someone who had done this 100 times before. But the mercenary was ready. He caught her wrist with a brutal force, spinning her around and throwing her into the stone wall with a grunt. Jack didn't think. He acted. With a roar, Jack fired a shot, hitting the mercenary square in the chest. The blast sent him stumbling back, but the armor he wore absorbed most of the damage. The mercenary growled in frustration, looking more dangerous than ever. You'll have to do better than that, he snarled, drawing his own weapon from its holster. It was larger than Jack's, but Jack didn't care. He was faster. He had to be. Lyra, shaken but not defeated, pushed herself off the wall, glaring at the mercenary with burning eyes. We're not going down without a fight. She darted toward him again, but this time Jack was ready. He stepped into the fray, moving in tandem with Lyra, the two of them working as a single unit. Lyra distracted the mercenary, keeping him off balance with swift strikes and quick moves. Meanwhile, Jack used the cover of the shadows to get closer, watching for his chance. The mercenary's movements grew more erratic, and Jack saw the opening he was waiting for. Lyra ducked under the mercenary's fist, using her momentum to push him off balance, and Jack took the shot. His blaster hit the mercenary's weapon, sending it flying across the room. The mercenary roared in frustration and lunged at Jack, but it was too late. In one fluid motion, Jack grabbed the mercenary's arm, twisted it behind his back, and slammed him into the ground. The mercenary struggled beneath him, but Jack kept him pinned, his blaster aimed at his face. Give up, Jack growled. You don't stand a chance. The mercenary's breath came in ragged gasps, his face contorted with rage. But he was beaten. The fight was over. Jack held him there for a moment longer, making sure he wouldn't try anything else. Then he stepped back, keeping his eyes on the mercenary. Stay down. You're done. Lyra stepped up beside him, breathing heavily but standing tall. This is our win, she said, her voice cool and collected. Jack nodded, not trusting the mercenary to stay down for long. He glanced around the room, his mind still processing the chaos that had just unfolded. But there was no time to linger on the victory. They had the artifact and they needed to get out. You okay? Jack asked Lyra, his voice softer now that the immediate threat had passed. Lyra nodded, her eyes scanning the room. I'm fine. But we can't stay here long. The others will be here soon. Jack glanced at the pedestal where the artifact still lay. It was glowing faintly, a beacon in the darkness. The temptation to take it, to wield its power, was strong. But Jack knew better than to let desire cloud his judgment. This was not a treasure to be claimed for personal gain. It was too dangerous, too unpredictable. We're destroying it, Jack said, his tone final. No one gets to use it. Not even us. Lyra hesitated for a moment, but then she nodded. I agree. It's too powerful. If the wrong people get their hands on it, they could destroy everything. Jack turned to the mercenary, still pinned on the ground. You heard that, he said coldly. We're not letting this thing fall into the wrong hands. Not yours, not anyone's. The mercenary sneered, but Jack could see the defeat in his eyes. He was done. But they weren't. Lyra moved toward the artifact, carefully approaching it. Her hands hovered over it as if she were considering the best way to destroy it. Jack joined her, standing by her side as she made her decision. There was no turning back now. I know how to do it, Lyra said quietly, but it's going to take a moment. Stay on guard. Jack nodded, his eyes scanning the chamber. The ruins around them felt alive with tension, and he knew they weren't alone. The mercenaries had followers, and they would come. They had to act fast. As Lyra worked on the artifact, Jack kept his focus on the door, waiting for any sign of movement. The seconds dragged on like hours, each one filled with the threat of danger. But just as Jack felt the pressure building, Lyra stepped back. It's done, she said, her voice steady. Jack took a deep breath and turned to look at the artifact one last time. It was no longer glowing. The power that had been contained within it was gone, and with it, the threat it posed. Let's go, Jack said, his voice resolute. We've done what we came here to do. Lyra gave him a small, tired smile. Yeah, but I think we've earned a break, Jack chuckled, the tension finally leaving his shoulders. They had faced down mercenaries, uncovered the truth about the artifact, and made it out alive. It wasn't the mission he had expected, but it was one he would never forget. Together, they walked out of the chamber, leaving the ruins behind. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, but for now they had won. And that was enough.